Welcome everyone. Here we are, Yvonne Davis and David Steele, to discuss the artist's way. This is day 10, and we are in week 2, recovering a sense of identity. So in the last video, David and I got onto the topic of self-worth and self-esteem. I think in that I would also include self-love and self-compassion. And the reason we got on this topic is because I was talking about how when we grow up, we get these messages that are interwoven into our psyches that may not necessarily reflect who we are as our own sense of self.
Don't get too big for your britches.
That's a good one. Money doesn't grow on trees.
You have a champagne taste on a soda pop budget.
Yeah. So, yeah, and all the things that you should do. And a lot of them have to do with ideas around, well, what will people think? But also ideas around money, because culture, it's such a fundamental part of our culture. The making, or what we call the making of money, the receiving and giving and exchanging of money. And why this has such an impact on us, because money, as they say, doesn't grow on trees, and it's a way that some people can accumulate vast stores of buying power.
Can I jump in here?
Sure, go ahead.
Two things. One, when you're talking about money, and we do say making money, I think it would be more accurate to say harvesting money. Because it's a nutrient that feeds our well-being and brings sustenance into our existence. And even though money doesn't grow on trees, it really nourishes us in a way very similar to how an apple might nourish us, in terms of the nutrient we need to make stuff happen in our lives that's important to us. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah. And I'm even a little concerned about using the word money. I think I might prefer to use the word currency or medium of exchange. And the reason why I say that is because I think that in our culture, going back to this idea of crazy makers and toxic playmates, I think that's what, poisonous playmates, that's the word that Julian Cameron uses. There is something about money in our culture that has allowed people to accumulate vast stores of buying power and what we call wealth, although I don't think that's actually wealth. I think our ingenuity and our creativity, our inventiveness, our innovation, that's actual wealth. But for the moment, there's a lot of power can be accumulated through the accumulation of this buying power that we call money. And for that reason, ideas around fear and scarcity can also be perpetuated throughout the culture. And this is through fear and scarcity, this is a way that people can be dominated. So again, you've got someone else's agenda external to you is putting pressure on you, but in very subtle ways. You can't necessarily point to anything or anyone, and yet there may be something inside of you that does not feel in alignment, and we don't necessarily know how to deal with that. But I think starting with a sense of self-worth can at least be a beginning to that. So take it over.
Okay. One of the ways that our lack of self-worth manifests very powerfully is in our relationship to money. And either I'm thinking of two ways that it manifests. One is through lack, like I don't deserve, or I can't achieve, or I can't accomplish. And we're just uncomfortable with money. We're afraid of it. Many of us, we're very afraid of it. The other way that lack of self-worth manifests around money is hoarding. No matter how much I get, I need more, and not enough. It's not enough, it's not enough. So a lot of people who accumulate great large amounts of money, more than they could possibly spend, is because there's this deep sense of lack. So it cuts both ways. There are people who do not have lots of money, who are content, and it's a conscious decision. And there are also people who have accumulated significant amounts of money, who don't do it out of lack, but do it out of a sense of play, and this is something I enjoy working with. So but for the purposes of this video, since we're talking about self-worth, it's that hoarding of money that's driven by deep insecurity, or that fear of money that's driven by deep insecurity, that I think we're going to focus on.
Well, see, what I really want to talk about and get clear on is this idea that there are maybe what I would call voices or values external to us that have been woven into our own psyches from a very young age, and so repetitively from so many different sources and directions and ways of saying it. You know, it could be anything from, my mom used to say, she probably said that one about money doesn't grow on trees, but she also used to say, you have a champagne taste in a beer budget. And even though I knew there was something kind of silly about it, I think it actually probably had an impact on me, you know, that there was a subtle message there that you'll never have enough money to bring into your life the things that give you joy and pleasure and comfort. And so that can create that sense of lack. But then there's something else. It's not just those little subtle messages your parents gave you. It's the whole culture. It's everywhere. It's in, you know, it's something that may seem as innocuous as a sitcom. Have you ever noticed that people in sitcoms always have an upper middle class standard of living? You know, you turn on the television, doesn't matter what you're watching, whether it's soap operas, sitcoms, primetime TV shows, you rarely see anyone who doesn't have an upper middle class standard of living. And so there's this message that to be normal, you have to maintain that kind of lifestyle. And the truth is that it's called upper middle class because it's not it's not what average people have. I don't know. You know, I actually studied economics in college, but I think there's so much distortion, even in what you could even go to a university. I went to the University of DU and got a good education, and yet there's still distortion. We have not gotten clear on what all of this stuff is about. And I'm hoping that our consciousness is moving in a direction where we're going to begin to understand this. But basically what I'm saying is there are so many messages external to us that have become so deeply woven in us that we can't even see what's true anymore. We can't even see anymore what is me and what is not me.
Yeah, so I want to, you brought up the me, not me. I want to just say a little bit about identity.
Okay.
When our identity is wrapped up around the stuff that we have, and the money that we bring in. And when we look to that for a sense of reassurance and wealth, that is actually in my opinion, a formula for misery. Mm-hmm. Because our sense of well-being emerges within us, and it's part of the life force that gets us out of bed every day and animates our nervous system so that we get inspired. And it doesn't come from the stuff out there. Now, the stuff out there, the world of stuff, and money is a big part of the world of stuff. When we have an abundance of stuff, there is a certain amount of security that can come from that. But my experience has been, I've known people that no matter how much stuff they have, it's not enough and they want more. No matter how much money they have, it's not enough and they want more. And so in my opinion, a healthy, empowered relationship with money is it becomes a symptom of a security that we carry around within us. And I like to think of it as a form of nourishment that contributes to our well-being, but not the source of our well-being. And so when we talk about identity, and we come back to what I was talking about in an earlier video about self-worth and self-confidence, is who I am and what I produce, how I contribute to the world. It holds enough value that I can harvest sustenance through expressing that. I don't have to tuck that away in the corner somewhere because it doesn't work and take off my personality and become a robot at work doing what I am supposed to do because I have to be a robot if I am going to make money. And then I'm done making money, then I can put my personality back on and be me after work. I think that's one of the toxicities that really permeates the planet and contributes to a lot of the discontent and misery that we feel. So that relationship with money and transforming our relationship with money, since we got onto this topic, and not have that be at the core of our identity, but have it be a symptom of our own sense of confidence and faith in life, is a fundamental shift that I would really love to see happen on the planet. So all you out there, you have my encouragement to think in those terms and to bring that shift about. Because clearly money is one of the energies that creates a lot of the oppression in the world. And if our relationship to money changed and it was not an oppressive force in our life, then there would be less oppression in the world.
So let's talk now about what are some strategies that we might use to move into a sense of self-worth, because I do think that's related to a sense of identity, is knowing I exist. I matter. Think about that word, matter. Existence and matter. They are actually the same. Does that make sense?
I had a big revelation when I was in my 20s. And that big revelation was that when I'm looking at someone, I see them in their world. Well, they're looking at me and they see me in their world. And I never realized that before. It's kind of like I didn't exist, because I'm looking out of these eyes, so I didn't exist. And all these other people did exist because I was bringing in the input.
Mm-hmm.
And so that realization, like, wow, I exist. People actually see me. They notice when I leave the room,
Mm-hmm.
was huge. And so that's that sense of matter that I am,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that I can have an impact on other people's lives. I used to think, oh, I'm just a little old man. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. Hi, I'm nothing. Don't worry about me. How could I possibly have an impact on other people? But actually had a huge impact on other people. Even that timidness had an impact on people. So knowing that what we do has impact is key to that sense of self-confidence.
Yeah, and I see a lot of truth in that. I am also wanting to go back to this topic of the inner locus of control and the outer locus of control, because I think that is another way of talking about the me and the not me, the self and the not self. And this idea that I exist and I matter. And the point that I wanted to make about the word matter is that everything that you can touch that's tangible is made of matter. And it's interesting that the word is basically the same. I matter. I exist. And that's not something that I need other people to tell me. That's something that I need to know within myself, that I exist, that I matter, that I have value because I exist. And that I can have an impact. And that's not something that I need the world to tell me. It's something I need to know within myself, because that's my inner locus of control. Because I have known people who didn't know on some level that they existed, that they mattered, that they had impact in the world. And the strange thing about it, because they experienced themselves as being invisible, actually became invisible. I know that sounds bizarre, but I have literally, I know of a story of someone who felt that way, that they were invisible, almost as if they didn't exist. And the very bizarre thing about it is that they became invisible to other people. They got locked into a building because the other people didn't realize they were even there. And so I want to make very clear, though, that we don't need to get our sense of existence, of mattering, of knowing we have value and that we have impact from other people. I'm not saying that relationship isn't important. I'm just saying that that has to come from an inner locus of control. So that feels really important to me. And I also want to mention that just before we started doing this video, we were talking about being at a party, and I said I wished we'd seen more people from our NBC community, that's nonviolent communication. And David started saying, well, David Chandal was there, enlisting these other people. And I got really angry. I got really triggered. I'm like, I know, I was right there. Apparently, he was just mumbling to himself. He wasn't even talking to me. And he was just listing them off out loud for his own memory. He wasn't actually trying to communicate anything to me. And I thought, well, why did that trigger me so much? And I suddenly realized it's because in my mind, I suddenly had a story that all these people were there, including David, and we were all standing in the kitchen together. And when I left, we even had this huge group hug that was so much fun. And I thought that when David was telling me all these people were there, he didn't realize that I was there too. I know because I was there, and that's why I got angry. Because I have this story in my head like, did you not know that I was there? But this is why it matters to us. We do want to know that other people see us, that they know that we're there. We want to feel safe. We want to know that we matter. And yet, at the same time, it has to come from within, not from without. So that's kind of one of the paradoxes of life. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that, because I think it returns us to this question of the strategies for bringing in that sense of self-worth.
One of the things, and this is a source of sadness for me, is 30 years ago, the average person had about 3.2, we're talking averages, just like you have 2.1 kids, 3.2 close friends that they could talk to about what was going on in their life. That average has dropped to 1.8. It's dropped in half. Mm-hmm. And we all need, in my opinion, it's really important to have other humans in our lives that we can really be uncensored around, that we can really talk about the things that matter mm-hmm. to us, and just blow off steam and express our vulnerability. And the lack of that, I think, is one of the factors that is mixed in with the opioid epidemic and mixed in with the desperation that people are feeling economically. Because having a community and having friends is an integral part of that I matter and building our self-worth. Right. So it is a mystery, it's a dance. Mm-hmm. It's a dance, and there's risk involved because we put on the persona and we're not quite present, because then if we get rejected or hurt, if something goes wrong, oh, that was just the persona, that wasn't really me, so I'm safe. Whereas if we really express ourselves directly and vulnerably, then if there's some rejection or something that goes right to our heart, because that was really me. At the same time, that persona protects us. It also is a filter between us and reality, so we don't experience things as directly. And it's internal as well as external. So if we identify too much with our persona, we get very confused about who we are. Mm. And we cultivate an emptiness inside. And then who am I if I'm not the car that I own and the amount of money that I make, mm-hmm. you know, and the places that I show up. Mm-hmm. So being able to be vulnerable is directly connected to drawing nourishment mm-hmm. from life and knowing that we matter. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think probably most people on this video, watching this video, know what a gift it is when someone is vulnerable around us and when they demonstrate trust in us, and how our yearning is to just, oh yeah, you're fine, you're okay. I just, you know, we want to embrace that. And so being vulnerable around others can be a gift to them, as well as building our own self-esteem. So I guess I'm just talking a little bit more about the dance.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to describe it, a dance, because, you know, I was thinking, well, how do I go into community, especially being myself, my vulnerable self, not the labels, not the persona, not the mask, but my true inner child artist, vulnerable self, you know, raw and exposed. How do I go into the world, into relationships, into community, if I'm too scared? I don't have a sense of self-worth yet. And I know, you know, because when I think about my own experience of learning how to be vulnerable and intimate in relationships with people, that the experience of vulnerability brought up a feeling of shame. And what I had to do was I had to learn to tolerate the feeling, the discomfort of shame. And that was the most difficult thing to work through. The transformation and the alchemy that occurred in that moment when I could tolerate the feeling of shame. It's like sitting in a fire. It burns. It hurts. I want to put that cage back on, that shell back on, that mask back on, protect myself. And yet I'm going to sit with it. And I might feel angry, because I think anger is what we use, and anger is a fire too. So it's kind of interesting that the fire can either burn out the impurities. The shame is an impurity. It's something we were taught, and maybe as children or at any other time in our life, when we put ourselves out on the line and we received back something that caused us to experience shame. And we held that within us, and we said, I'll never let myself feel that again. I'll never put myself on the line that way again. And that is how we end up in the place where we are blocked, because it's the vulnerable child who is creative. And yet it's the vulnerable child who also has the fear of, what if people say they don't like it? What if they say they don't like me? How am I going to deal with that? And in our intellect, we might say, it's no problem. But when we actually feel that sense of rejection, what we call rejection, it is so painful that most people cannot bear to go there.
So this is where the sense of identity, the alignment that results in inspiration is really important, because that inspiration gives us the courage to be vulnerable. It gives us the courage to push past the potential of rejection and share. And there's something about, wow, this is really core me, this is who I am, this is what I care about, that creates a joy in us. And like I said, an inspiration, so that the fear and the anger can move more into the background. And then we express something, and then, I survived that. I was vulnerable and I survived that. So we do it again. And we do it a few times and a few more times and a few more times. And the next thing you know, we've built up some self-confidence, and our self-esteem is better. So it really starts by that alignment, by that core recognizing, this is the stuff that I really care about. This is the stuff that's important to me. And slathering ourselves in that, so that we really feel it in the core of our being. And then that really helps, gives us the courage to take the steps required to build confidence. Because there's only one way to build confidence. It's to fall on your ass and get up again and keep moving. And then the next time you don't fall, maybe the next time after that you do. That's why you see people who built businesses and stuff many times. I've heard this probably at least a dozen times, that the most important skill is being able to get right back up on the horse once you get knocked down. Because if you go out into the world, you do stuff, you're going to take risks. If you get involved in a relationship that you really care about, you're going to get knocked down every once in a while. And the question is, can you get back up and realize, that really hurt? And in spite of that, I'm going to take the next step.
Well, I love talking about this subject because it's so dear to my heart. And I think that's what brought me here to this point in my life, is that inspiration, that passion, that fire that was strong enough to get me past all the discomfort and the fear of allowing myself to be vulnerable, say, this is who I am. This is what I value. This is what I want to do. And it's going to burn through all the other messages that are coming to me that might not be supporting that, might try to negate the person I say, I am. This is who I am. This is what I want. This is what I value. And this is what I am going to do. And so that fire and that passion just keeps me going. So as much as I love talking about the subject, I don't want this video to get so long that it's unwatchable.
Thanks for those of you who are still watching.
So anyway, we'll bring this one to a close, and then we will come back to further explore this topic. And I think actually it leads us in the direction of self-empathy. So I think that will need to be a topic that we explore perhaps on day 11. So thank you for continuing to follow us on our journey. I hope that you are benefiting tremendously from what we are sharing here. So please, if you're enjoying these videos, subscribe, click like, ring the bell, and put your comments below. And we will see you again next time.